Boo! Did I scare you? With Halloween drawing close, I really wanted to do an Armistan creation, but all I could think of was just making wings. While this creation isn't exactly scary, I think it looks really awesome as a Halloween costume. Plus, you can flex to your friends with how many diamond swords or even netherite swords you have. And I think it just looks really cool overall. And as usual, please drop a like on the video if you liked it and consider subscribing to my channel. Also, check out my Twitch channel, where I usually stream on my single player world and make pretty awesome builds. We recently finished one really cool build, so do come and check it out sometime. So, before we start this tutorial, I must emphasize that this is a Java Edition tutorial. This is using the Vanilla Tweaks Armor Statues data pack, so unfortunately this may not work on Bedrock Edition. This tutorial is also an intermediate tutorial, so you must be familiar with the book controls and settings. I'll run through some important things while making this creation, however for the most part you're on your own for the adjustments. You can check out my tutorial on the detailed breakdown of the book controls, or you can just discover it yourself through trial and error. It's completely up to you. Anyways, without further ado, let's get started with the tutorial. For this creation, you're going to need, of course, the Armistan book. You're going to need a lot of Armistan, so make sure you craft a lot of them in advance, and you're also going to need a bunch of swords. You can choose any type of material that you want, but I'm gonna try using the diamond sword for my creation. So in survival, you can obtain diamond swords easily via villager trading. However, if that's not accessible, you can also go for iron swords or even stone swords. So before you begin making your creation, remember to open your world to a local area network. If you're in survival, then make sure to retain the game mode to survival and make sure your cheats are off. In this case, since I'm in the creative world, I'll be putting it in creative and starting a local area network. This only applies to single player worlds, however, if you're playing on a server, then you can actually skip this step. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to place an Armistan here at the seat of the throne. Then, the next thing that we have to do is to straighten out the Armistan. So, I don't know if you can see, but in the default position of the Armistan, it is actually not straight. You can see that one leg is more forward than the other, and the body is slightly turned to the side. So in order to straighten out the Armistan, you have to go under presets and set it to attention, and you can see that now the Armistan has straightened out. Then the other thing that I'm going to do is just turn off the gravity, and then proceed to lock the Armistan. So this Armistan here serves as a guide as to where the player would be standing or sitting on the throne. And what I want to do is to go into F5 mode and go back and forth just to see where I want the wings to be placed. So for the player, I want the wings to be placed somewhere at this part of the back. And if I go back and forth in this Armistan, that part of the back corresponds to roughly around this part of the hole. So this is the part where we want to put our first sword in. So before I place the first sword, I've given the sword an enchantment so that it will give out a glint in the end product. For the first sword, I'm going to place an Armistan that's facing in this direction. Then, I'm going to give it some arms, make sure the gravity is off, and of course, put the preset to attention. And this will apply for all of the Armistans. The Armistan that we will be using would be the adult Armistan instead of the small one. However, if you want to create some variations, you can also experiment with the smaller Armistans. So we're going to give it a sword, and as you can see, the sword is on the right arm. Then we're going to try to position it in such a way that it lands in the middle here. So for the first adjustment, I need the arm to go backwards. For the arm to go backwards and forwards, or for the arm to raise up and go backwards, you need to use the x-axis. Just like that. So let me bring the sword in close to the body. Okay, and as we can see, this is the angle of the sword as of the moment. I want the sword to still be angled a bit more downwards, so I'm going to adjust that some more. Okay, and I think this looks pretty good. The second thing I want to do is I want the sword to sort of tilt towards this direction a little bit. And in order to do that, we need the arm to kind of go inwards this way. For it to go inwards, we need to use the z-axis. Now I set my rotation to 5 degrees at the moment, because I don't want it to be too severe. And then if I press -C for it to go inwards, you can see that now the sword actually tilts towards this direction. So let's make a final check to see if I'm happy with this position for now. And we can also go into F5 mode, don't forget, to help you check if your armor stand is placed in the position that you want it to be placed in. Okay, so I think I'm pretty happy with the positioning of the sword. What I'm going to do before I lock and make this armor stand invisible is I'm actually going to use the copy function of this book. So we're going to copy this armor stand, then we're going to go into styles, make it invisible, then we're going to lock it. Okay, so this is where we enter the second armor stand, and what we're going to do is we're basically going to paste the settings for the first armor stand onto the second armor stand. And then we're going to flip it so that the wings on both sides are symmetrical. So let me show you how to do that. We'll place down an armor stand, and immediately we'll go to the utilities and press paste. Okay, then we'll go on the flip and flip the position so that it's the left arm now that is being affected. Let's give the armor stand a sword. Then let's have it swap the sword from its main hand, which is the right hand, to the offhand, which is in the left hand. And as you can see, it has the same position as the first armor stand, except that it's flipped over to the other side. So another thing to take note of when you use the copy and paste settings is for some reason, it will not copy over the apply gravity setting. So whenever you do this copy and paste function with the armor stand book, remember to redo the apply gravity setting. So always set it to no. Okay, so let's go on to positioning the second armor stand really quick, and we'll be back. Okay, so now the armor stand's in position, and we can actually check it with F5 mode to make sure that it's symmetrical. We can check from a top down or side view with F5 mode as well, just to make sure it's in the right place. Then we can go on to settings, make it invisible, and then lock the second armor stand. Okay, so now we have the starting point of where we want the wings to be. So now we have to kind of draw out an imaginary line to figure out where we want the wings to go. And in this case, I think I'll do something really simple. We're just gonna go for something like a U shape and then just have it go upwards like that to make wings. Okay, so let's try and position the second, third, fourth, and fifth armor stands. Alright, so now I've placed the second sword of each side of the wing, and what I've basically done here is I left a gap between two of these swords, and I'm going to fill it in immediately with another sword here. What I'm planning to do is to make these sort of feathers 2 layers. So this is the first layer, and what I'm going to place here in this gap is going to be the second layer of feathers or swords, and the second layer is going to pop out to the back a little bit, so it kind of has a zigzag pattern. You have one sword or feather in the front and then another one in the back, front, back, and it just keeps going on to the top. So let's just do it and see how it works out. So right now I've placed about 5 swords for each side, and let's go over to the side here so that we can see what I was talking about earlier. So as you can see, these first 3 swords, so this, and this is the first layer, and these 2 swords in the middle are the second layers. So you can see the first layer is right here, and the second layer actually sticks out a little bit, and this is the effect that I'm trying to create. So anyway, let's continue building until we have both wings on both sides. So right now we're about halfway done with the wings, and I think it's useful to note that at some point, not only will you have to use the z-axis, you also have to use the y-axis. So here's an example of the sword. You can see that it's actually almost flat and almost the same angle as these two swords. So what we have to do, instead of using the z-axis earlier, now we have to use the y-axis for this. So let's just demonstrate that really quick. Let's go into F5 first. As you can see, we'll go under pose adjust and let's use the positive y-axis just to bring the sword back. So now you can see that the sword actually moved back a bit and it's in the right angle. So I've already done it on the other side and I'm just demonstrating it here so you can see how it looks. Okay, so let's continue and finish this wing creation. And now I'm about to place the last sword on this creation. So in order to check to see whether it's in the right position, we're going to change this to invisible. And in F5 mode, we can actually go to the sides again. We can look from a top-down view just to make sure it's more or less aligned. Just to see that each sword goes back and forth like that. And it looks about right. And let's just lock it then. Okay, so now let's take a look at the wing. We can see that it has a nice curved pattern, both on this part of the hilt and also this part, like the guard part of the sword. And I think that looks pretty good already. So what we have to do next is we have to remove this armor stand here in the middle. So regardless of whether you're in creative mode or in survival, you can actually remove visible armor stands via arrows, or you can kind of punch it. So we don't need to unlock this armor stand, we can just shoot this armor stand. So let's demonstrate that really quick. We'll get a bow and an arrow. Okay, and let's go into survival. Right. So we're going to take the arrow and shoot the armor stand, and there we go. And now all that's left to do is to slowly back into the throne and just admire how majestic you look, you majestic beast. And so that brings us to the end of this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed watching the creation process of this sculpture, and I hope this gave you some insight as to how I make my armor stand creations with this data pack. A few things to keep in mind while making Armor Stand creations is that you gotta have a lot of patience. Sometimes these creations don't just take hours, they could take days, or even weeks, or sometimes even months. Art is not meant to be rushed, so don't rush your creations. So, I hope you have fun with making this creation, and you can actually share to me your creations via my Discord channel, which I will link in the description below. I really look forward to seeing what else the community can create. And until next time, bye for now.